Good afternoon. I'd first like to get you started off in thinking of a Chinese proverb I've once heard. It goes a little something like this. In order to get to where you want to be, you need to change direction. If not, you're just going to end up getting where you're going. Mr. McDonald, the rest of the executive team, I'd like to introduce myself and my team here. We have Jessica, Andrew, I'm Haley. And 2 weeks ago in our meeting, we were absolutely thrilled when Mr. McDonald, you challenged us with the opportunity to bring to you our brainstorming ideas in regards to the current labor challenge that EDC has in regards to bringing more labor to Edmonton. We're here today to propose to you our recommendations as to how you're going to get to where you want to be. We're going to give you the recommendations to change that direction so you do not stay in the direction that you're going. With that, we'll go to our agenda. I'm going to start off with the problem identification. Jessica will then take care of the analysis. Andrew will go over the recommendation and implementations. And then I will finish off with the conclusion. Let's get going. First of all, what is the primary issue? Overarching issue is basically to create and develop this labor strategy for the City of Edmonton on behalf of your organization, our organization. But you need to stop and ask why. Why is it that you want to do this? Why is it that we feel the need to create this new labor strategy and bring excellent, talented people into this amazing City of Edmonton? Well, first of all, by 2030, we want to become one of the top 5 medium-sized cities in the world. And in order to do that, we're going to give you the kickstart recommendations to get you on the right path to doing that. Number 2, in 2008, we saw what happened in regards to human resource strategies from a labor perspective. We were taking warm bodies, anyone with a pulse would walk into technology, services, any type of organization, and it'd be your hire. We saw what that did for retaining these employees and how it affected us in the long term. So we need to learn from these changes and make sure it doesn't happen again. And then third of all, for the City of Edmonton in general, we need to fuel productivity. The thing is, we can take anyone, talented or not, and invite them to our city, make them want to come work here. But if they're not going to be productive, if they're not going to bring the most they can to the organizations that they're working for, then there's no point in bringing them here in the first place. So we need to set up systems that are going to attract and retain reward systems that are going to make sure that these employees are being the most productive employees in the organizations and in turn making them into a more productive city. On to the secondary issues. We've seen within our own organization that there may be some different ideas among our executive team. You all come from different areas of the industry, whether it's services, technology, just bringing in employees into Edmonton in general. So there's a little bit of a lack of unity. And so one of the things is we want to recognize how to become more unified. And in our recommendation section, I think you're going to see a great way that we can achieve this. Second, a lack of skilled labor. It has been mentioned that filling entry-level positions is really easy. We can do that simply. They can come and start, whether it's working at the Shaw Center or for hotels and restaurants in Edmonton. But to find someone who's very qualified can be a little bit difficult right now. And so we see that this possibly could be a lack of development in trades education, not being very popular right now, and as well as local students going off to work at exciting positions on an international level or around their own country. Next, the attraction of foreign labor. This is something that we need to learn from in 2008. At that point in time, we needed to fill job positions and saw the need to attract foreign people to come work here in Canada. But then, once we started to recover, we sent them back home. We didn't keep them here. So, something that we need to look at is, once again, trying to bring international employees to our country, specifically to Edmonton, Alberta, and find a way to get them to stay. Last, there is a bit of a generation gap that we're noticing between the baby boomers and Generation X. And these two generations, they've got different ideologies on how work should be done in the workplace. They're motivated by different incentives. And so once again, in our recommendation section, we're going to excitedly give you something to help bridge this gap and make them work together rather than apart. So with that, Jessica will get started on our analysis.
Thank you, Haley. I would first like to start our analysis by emphasizing the importance of EEDC to Edmonton's overall growth. And although this might just be one not-for-profit organization, our 4 divisions represent 4 pillars. That is of customer service, of tourism, knowledge and research, and finally of overall economic development. And without aligning all of these with the businesses in Edmonton, we will not see that crucial growth that needs to happen in our city. So we are going to analyze this using the talent management framework. Looking at some of our external pressures, the population of Edmonton is not showing very much growth, and we might have to look to national or international labor resources in order to fuel this productivity. Furthermore, we might have to also get more people coming into the city to use the products and the services that are being offered. Taking a look at the expanding market, this is mainly due to the oil reserves in northern Alberta, and we have to capitalize on this opportunity for increasing jobs. Next, taking a look at the labor forces education. About 55% of graduates are going through either university programs or skills and training development. And by tapping into that leftover 45% of students who are either not graduating high school or only getting their high school diploma, we will increase the skills efficiency of our labor resources. Next, taking a look at EEDC's overall labor strategy. And once again, this relates to Edmonton's overall economic development because it is crucial that we can align all of the communication and cohesiveness between the businesses in this region. By improving the communication and the development of skills between businesses and within the organizations themselves, this is the human resource strategy that we are looking for to improve the efficiency and productivity of these businesses. Next, we will be taking a look at the human resources plans and policies and how these policies will be measured in the future. So taking a look at these human resource policy balances that Mr. McDonald, you asked us to take a look at. First of all, looking at the lack of planning that happened in the past. Once the economic boom began in the past, it was very hard for businesses to keep up with that demand for labor. And this resulted in, as Haley said, hiring any bodies that would pass through and taking that first employee that they could snatch up. This also resulted in poaching the suppliers of their own employees because employers knew that they had the skills that were competent in the jobs. This, however, only increased more labor market inefficiency because the suppliers could then not meet the demands of the businesses. Furthermore, looking to training. Once these employees were recruited, they were only trained for very job-specific functions and were not cross-trained to better utilize all industries in the business. And finally, looking at retention. Companies offer high pay and great benefits to their employees. However, it is important to notice that employees are not only motivated by extrinsic benefits such as money. There's also intrinsic motivation such as either opportunities for growth, professional development, and recognition that can be very useful in motivating and engaging their employees. Next, taking a look at the labor and economic market. Mr. McDonald also asked us a question about whether we should keep a broad perspective or focus on the key resources that we needed, which is in the oil industry. And our answer to that is that it should be very broad. If you keep it all focused on the oil industries, you will not be able to, first of all, serve these workers, and it's also not setting Edmonton up for very sustainable growth in the future. There's also very cyclical resource-based industries, and this is causing not only a change in the labor market, because there's not very steady growth in these industries. People are always changing jobs, which is shown by the data that we were given. So first of all, by cross-training these employees and giving them the tools to succeed in different parts of the business, they will be able to better serve our Edmonton companies. And this also increases the amount of the employee shift work that has to be done. We noted that many employees were only spending 2 to 3 weeks in the Edmonton region in order to fulfill the oil industry's needs. And we think that by making these employees stay, by making them want to live in Edmonton, we will not only increase their efficiency in these businesses, we will also be able to get the economic drivers of Edmonton up and running. Finally, looking at knowledge management. Taking a look at what Haley mentioned between generations X and Y, we need to make sure that any of the managers that are in top positions in industries today are able to pass down that knowledge that they have. And without offering a type of program or incentives to learn these skills, not only the perspectives of management, but the basic needs of an organization might not be filtered through to separate employees. This leads us to a solutions overview. We took all of these factors into consideration when developing this, and we came up with 3 possible options for moving forward. First of all, there is the status quo. And this might not lead to the best economic development. As you see, along the y-axis here, we have labor development, short-term strategic fit, and long-term strategic fit. And let's be honest, keeping the status quo is merely ignoring the trends of the new boom that might be coming on. So our next option is to use rewards to attract new employees now. So that is, once again, offering a high pay and high benefits to be able to get employees going into Edmonton and perhaps training them now so that they would be able to step out to those levels of management. However, we feel that this is not very sustainable. Once again, you have to be able to sustain the labor market growth, and by offering all of these benefits now, this will not lead up to a very bright future. So that brings us to our last plan, which is the Sustainable Growth Plan. This plan that we have developed, which Andrew will elaborate on, will set us up for labor market development and making sure that not only that we're training our employees well, but to make sure that they have the skills needed for these jobs before they actually get hired. It will also have a short-term strategic fit, and that is giving businesses the time to develop programs and policies, and also for demand to get up to where it was before. And finally, long-term strategic fit, we feel that these employees will be able to lead and manage companies in the future. So now I'm going to pass this on to Andrew, who's going to elaborate on our Sustainable Growth Plan.
Thanks, Jessica. Okay, so before I get started on the recommendations, there's a little thing that I want to share with you. It's from a book called APAP. And in the dedication portion of the book, right in the beginning, it states that leadership is a choice and not a position. Now, Mr. McDonald, I feel like this is something that you've installed on us as your employees, given us this opportunity with this project to be leaders, to give you the ideas and the recommendations to further your company. So, in a basic view, what are we going to show you today? Short-term goals plus long-term goals equaling sustainable growth through leadership. So, just a brief overview. In the short term, triple R toolkit. This is what we're going to incorporate to look at the retention, the reward, and the retention. Looking at communication, mainly on an executive level between you five. Looking at community as well. We've got a very exciting plan and sort of a key word that will be the foundation of your company. Looking long term. Now we define short term as within 1 year, long term after 1 year. Long term, looking at the post-baby boomer market. As you know, a lot of baby boomers are leaving the market or in the industry in the next couple of years. So it's something that we need to analyze and look at. As fairly new employees to your company, we're excited with this, but at the same time, we recognize the importance of understanding where we need to go with it. Secondly, looking at educational initiatives. Alberta is full of trade schools, and we've identified that in this recommendation that we'll speak to in a little bit. And lastly, Edmonton tourism. This is where it's going to come to you, and we have a great idea and a great plan for you. So that's going to come up at the end of our long-term plan. So, our triple R toolkit, as I mentioned, recruiting, retaining, rewarding. Now, 3 of us, my colleagues and I, we're not quite there to create the reward plans that you feel is fit for your company. However, we believe that now is the time to start building the toolkit and identify the things that should be included in this toolkit. So building a little bit of consistency. So between the different divisions of your company, there needs to be consistency in terms of what is classified as the proper recruiting methods. Do we have sufficient job descriptions, and how are they written? Are they being written in a way that we are getting the right employees, not just warm bodies? Because as we mentioned earlier, we don't have time for warm bodies anymore. We want educated, empowered individuals for our company. So let's make it competitive. not excessive. In the past, we've noticed a large amount of excessive reward, not necessarily competitive. Moving on to communication. On an executive level, we implement a 360-degree feedback tool. This is a tool where the executive team, you guys, are going to have a chance to critically analyze each other and find out what's working and what's not working, ideas that you think are working on the different levels, and things that you'd like to see happen. It's something that we'll talk about implementation has to be implemented immediately, because if we're not on the same page, we can't grow. So it's going to be critical evaluation and a united executive team in the end. And community. So this is what I was talking about earlier. We're going to create a sense of a community hub. EDC being the hub. Our company does a great job of being involved with the community. But let's go further. The professional golfer Sam Steed said that it's just human nature to want to practice what we're good at. It's a hell of a lot easier, and it's a hell of a lot more fun. Let's go a little bit further with that. Let's continue to have fun. It might not be easier, but we're going to go further with it. We're going to dive into the community, get to charities, get to other non-profit companies. Moving on to the long-term strategy, looking at the post-baby boomer market, bridging that gap between Generation X and Y and the baby boomers. It's critical. Mr. Chamberlain, this is what we're going to come to you for, because being Director of Knowledge Management, we feel that you can provide us with the best direction in terms of creating a mentorship program for new employees and employees that are already part of the company. In this industry, there's a lot of opportunity for growth. So with a mentorship program and knowledge management, we're going to be able to retain that knowledge that we have in our company and install it in the individuals that we have on a more entry-level basis. So with this strong retention strategy, we're going to have the most educated, most empowered, and most driven employees in our company. Moving on to the educational initiatives, looking at long-term growth. Trade schools are all across Alberta, SAIT, NAIT, as well as Skills Canada, other non-for-profit companies that are funded by the government that provide service initiatives for young students that are looking to get into the different trades, whether it's service, oil and gas, plumbing. It's not just more bodies anymore, like I said. These are educated individuals who are going to be great assets to our company. So let's not export our education, your education, the province's education, the country's education. Let's keep that within our company. And as I mentioned, this is where we're going to go with the Edmonton Tourism Division. Last week, when we were sort of planning this, I was watching TV, taking a little break from planning, and this commercial came on. And it was a tourism commercial for Australia. And it just captivated me. It wanted me to go travel to Australia, although my heart is in Edmonton, so I'm not going to leave. Now, if we can create something like that for Edmonton, bring people to Edmonton that want to stay, want to live, want to work, it's going to be great. So it's something that we can start fairly soon and start working on. However, in the long term, it's going to show great growth for Edmonton, reaching that top 5 medium-sized cities in 2030. Implementation. Today, 360-degree feedback. That will start today. It's something that has to start today. The 5 of you will gather, you'll implement, you'll critically analyze each other, we'll start the toolkit building, as well as starting to find volunteer positions for the community hub. This doesn't need to be a paid position. The thing about community charity, it's about not making a profit. It's about getting out in the community, getting the company recognized. 1 month, educational partnerships with the companies across Alberta. And after 1 month, we'll start implementing the community hub development, and then review the executive team evaluation. As we've outlined here, this is the other part of the implementation. I'm going to pass it on to Haley, who's just going to talk about some risk analysis.
All right, so we used a that scorecard here to develop the internal processes of learning development as the 2 main areas that we see that need to be included in our risk analysis. The first one, low risk, not that important. Second one, we see that the 360 feedback is the highest risk with this project, mainly because not everyone on the executive committee may find they want to be evaluated on such a personal level. But in being transparent and really clear with what you're wanting out of that process, we're sure it's going to work great. Community hub, we see no risk in that at all, as well as educational partnerships. They're both win-win. So finally, we just want you to realize, in order for this to be a success, you need to learn from the past, appreciate the present, and be extremely excited about what's going to happen in the future. With that, we'll open the floor for questions.
In the implementation, did you consider cost impact on various holders? On the regular cost impact, how much would it cost EDC to implement it?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, there's going to be costs identified with each of the division. Some zero costs, some will have a little bit more cost. It's not something that we analyze as much in our sort of presentation to, just because, 2-week process, we didn't have a whole lot of time to analyze the numbers that were given to us. However, we do understand the fact that implementing some of the things, like the community hub, we will have to pay for certain things. But actually identifying the actual cost, we haven't outlined that in the presentation.
And just expanding on that, because the EDC is a not-for-profit organization, most of the gains will actually be seen for these Edmonton businesses. And we feel that by attracting better workers and training them properly, giving them the opportunities to grow and expand with these companies, we will actually get back to EDC at the end when these employees were able to create and sustain more value for these companies.
To identify in these secondary issues, the different ideas and motives of this, there's a lack of community process. And then when we get into the implementation, starting today, we're going to do a piece of community feedback. So how do you propose to get us on board quickly so that it'll reverse your implementation plan?
Okay, just noted from our previous meeting a couple of weeks ago, we saw that some people thought that we don't have to worry about the labor crisis at all, it's not going to happen, just keep it as status quo, it's like on the back burner for now. Other people felt that it was okay, somewhere in the middle, we do kind of need to consider it, but not really worry about it for now. And I think in explaining and coming in from Mr. McDonald's perspective and talking to all the executives, saying that what we're looking for is in order to make Edmonton the most successful in the future. As a team, we really need to sit down and look at why it is that we're thinking in these different ways. So we're going to go through a feedback process in which you're going to just be sharing a little bit more detail into why you have the current thought process that you do, and then build from a team perspective on once we get that level grounded and a more backup on the end.
Okay, so once you get us all on the same page, how are we going to be engaging the business community?
Engaging the business community or just the community itself? You want to identify more of the business community? Yeah. Well, once we're on board, as we've sort of seen through the last couple of weeks, we do a really good job of getting out to businesses and finding out what's working for other businesses. So that's where we feel that we have that connection with other businesses. Mr. Chamberlain, you mentioned that you do go out and you've connected with businesses. They've addressed issues that they've had, as well as you've shared the issues that we've had. So we feel that that interaction, so it's not so much not entirely communication within the executive team, that communication business to business, that will really show what has to happen and sort of that sort of teamwork within the different businesses.
Because at the end, they have to continue the business.
Absolutely, because it's eventually they're the frontline employees, right? So they're the ones that retain the employees and sort of are the frontline for everyone.
To add on to what Andrew had to say there, I think that's where something like the toolkit, the RRR toolkit will come in handy. Because as our organization, we're going to develop something that all the Edmonton businesses hopefully can either look at and use directly or look at and kind of tweak to be more specific to their business and help them to recruit, retain, and reward the most excellent employees that we can.
You talked about the secondary issue, the attraction for labor. Why is that important?
That's very important because the current population growth is not enough to sustain the actual growth in the market that will be provided by these oil and other resource companies. So we feel that by attracting international and national talent, this will make sure that we're able to fuel that expansion in the market. And we plan on reaching these employees by just making the overall city and company culture, perhaps diversity training programs to make sure that they're really accepted into the business culture and companies within Edmonton. And we feel that this would have a positive impact on the companies overall.
And as Jessica just mentioned there with diversity, diversity is such a big part of many corporations all over the world, not just in Edmonton. And to create that more diverse environment in Edmonton, will allow for more creativity, more innovation. There'll be different opportunities and ideas from all over the world that they'll be bringing to share in this community as well.
And that's right,